Did our priest just call me a jerk from the pulpit? Just kidding, just kidding. We have that kind of relationship, it's fine. This is my confession. Up until I was 46 years old, I didn't believe that God was good. And for the record, I'm 47 now. So 6 months, just 6 months ago, I had one of the most profoundly pivotal realizations of my life. God's goodness, a pretty basic concept in Christianity, was not something that I considered to be true. Funny, since 1 year ago, I stood in this exact place and talked about learning to see God's provisions, or manna, in my life. To be clear, I didn't stand up here and try to fool you all. I just wasn't aware. I know it seems bonkers that I could profess to follow a God for 20 plus years that I didn't think was good, but truth seems to have a way of rising to the surface when we're finally ready to receive it. I have long struggled with black and white thinking. It has always been much simpler to break the world, people, and my life up into black and white. 2 buckets, a binary, and nothing else. It's this kind of either-or thinking. In this kind of either-or thinking, life becomes so much less complicated. There are only 2 options for an answer, and there's always going to be an answer. It's either right or it's wrong. You're a man or a woman. You're conservative or woke, good or bad, a Christian or going straight to hell in a handbasket. As an aside, I once had a friend who told me they thought that phrase was actually going to hell in a ham basket, and I have never been the same. I grew up in the church, a Korean Presbyterian church to be exact. There, I learned about friendship and a specific type of spirituality characterized by the desire to be good, and that the worst thing you could do as a girl was to have sex before marriage. The Korean Presbyterian God that I met there was powerful and mighty, omnipresent, but not in a good way, more like a backseat driver. I felt he was always judging me from his lazy boy in the sky and letting me experience bad things so that I could learn something. Tough love, let go, let God. Everything happens for a reason. Refiner's Fire. If you were in youth group in the 90s, everybody knew that song, right? Refiner's Fire. I fully believed that I was supposed to go through fires so that the gold of my heart would be refined. And I believed that God was the one putting me in that fire and burning away what was not of him. I mean, maybe it's not totally inconceivable that my teenage self might have absorbed that God was maybe a little more sadist than good. This was a God that was lean on love, mercy, and grace. He cared more about my being pure than being present in my pain. I was told, and I internalized, that the fact that I was struggling so much was an indication that I didn't trust God or his plan for my life enough. It was all either or. Either I was a good Christian and good things happened to me, or I was a bad Christian and that's why I was struggling. It was all about me and how good I could be, and never about why a good God would want to see me in pain so I could grow. I absorbed all of these messages, and they became the cracked foundation on which I built my house of faith. And the thing that happens when you build a house on a whack foundation is that your house is kind of whack. The floors aren't even, some of the cabinets don't close, and the windows keep popping open, but you always seem to get used to it. It's your house after all, and soon enough, you don't even notice that you live in a whack house anymore. Which is why, on that January day when I sat with Corey Hayes in Golden Diner, eating the best pancakes of my life, honey butter pancakes, you should go get them, I was shook when I had this realization. Corey wasn't delivering some kind of sermon to me about God's goodness. We were just in conversation where he said something to the effect of, well, when things like that happen to me, I think, I know God is good, so if that's the truth, how do I understand this thing that's happening? And in that moment, I knew. My heart and my mind knew that I didn't believe that. I had never before filtered my life through the lens of God's goodness. I went home that night and wrote this in my journal. This is it, God. How do I believe that you're good? If I can't take the evidence of my life and believe it, if I can't take the crucifixion and believe it, what will it take for me to believe it? And why don't I? Last year, I talked about how I was working on letting go of my need to be responsible, efficient, and productive in my middle-aged desire for self-gentleness and kindness. This experience and the 6 months leading up to today have been an answer to that ongoing prayer. After I realized that the foundation of my house was no good, I wasn't sure how to fix it. I wasn't sure what to do. How would I unwind a lifetime of believing a certain way? And was that even possible? The amazing thing was that all I really had to do was to ask God the question and stay curious about the answer. When challenging things happened, I started to ask myself, well, what if God was good? What would this actually mean? And gently, slowly, and with so much kindness, God changed my heart without me having to fix it, to know what to do, or to do the work to find the answer. There was so much love in how Jesus found the door to my house open just a crack and was able to start opening the door wider and wider until he was inside repouring the foundation and redecorating. It's all shiplap now. No Magnolia Homes people here? Okay. The verse that I chose as one of my guiding verses during this time is from Isaiah 43, and it reads, "When you pass through deep waters, I will be with you. Your troubles will not overwhelm you. When you pass through fire, you will not be burned. The hard trials that come will not hurt you." This verse has become the antidote to the either-or thinking that I had always engaged in. Once I could stop seeing everything in black and white, I was able to read this verse as a realistic and beautiful both-and statement about life and God. God says, when you pass through deep waters, when you pass through fire, when the hard trials come, I will be with you. I will be present. I will protect you, and I will keep you safe. He doesn't promise that all will be hunky-dory all the time. But those hard times are not an indication of my insufficiency, my inability to be good enough, or my unbelief. They are the reality of life, as much a promise as God's presence. This verse keeps reinforcing the truth that God doesn't ignore the pain of life, but continually honors it as a part of this messy human experience. Over the past few months, deep waters have come, and God was with me. A little over 3 months ago, I started a new job as the head of a school that one could only describe as a 4-letter word kind of show. I strongly sensed that this job was a gift from God, but it was not the kind of gift that anyone would put on their Christmas list. I was going from crisis to crisis every week from the moment I started, and one day I was riding my bike back home when I prayed, with curiosity, not resentment, "Why did you want me to have this job, God?" And I heard an answer back that said, "This is your work." Now, this is not a common occurrence. I don't often hear God audibly, or really at all. I I may sense him or wonder about something that pops up into my mind, but this was not that. This was a voice, and the response was fast. And had it been a year ago, I would have been so angry. I would have felt that God had put me in another fire so that I could learn something. But it wasn't a year ago, and I actually felt comforted by his words. Since I believe that God is good, and he told me that this is my work, I can believe that there is something good for me here, and that my troubles will not overwhelm me. And they haven't. It hasn't been easy, far from it. But each obstacle that was put in my path those first 6 weeks, God miraculously cleared a way forward within 24 hours. I've been continuously surprised, confused, and grateful. And the job is changing me. It is challenging me and expanding my ability to love those who I don't like and to extend grace when that is the last thing that I want to do. And so I have entered into a world of gray where there are very few set answers and infinite possibilities. It is still often uncomfortable for me, but now I know that God is good and he is with me. Let the deep waters flow.